Thank you for being here. At a press conference earlier today, the leader of the opposition made one of the most ludicrous statements I've ever heard. But he is known for doing this sort of thing. I think he was asked a bit about consultations for the 2024 budget. And he said that the PPP is stealing their ideas for the budget in 2024. Now, I've not seen a workable, sensible, economic idea from the opposition in decades. And they had a 5 years tenure in which to practice all of these great economic philosophy, ideas, programs to accrue benefits for our country. But of course, we know what that history was like. It's a fact that we are preparing for the 2024 budget, and there are lots of discussions taking place across the country. We're reviewing 2023 and what we have accomplished based on the tasks we set ourselves at the beginning of the year. In some areas, there's been an overachievement, and in other areas, we have fallen short of the targeted levels, particularly in the implementation of some works where we've had delays from contractors. But every single project we have pursued brings us closer to the realization of the vision that we've outlined for this country and is consistent with the manifesto promises we made when we campaigned. As I said before, our promises were many, and there was misgivings in many quarters as to whether we would have achieved those promises in government. And I saw a series of analyses done by the newspapers, Starbuck News, saying it's impossible to achieve these issues, and they called on us to demonstrate how we were going to achieve them. That is the job creation, the housing program, which are very aggressive. We've demonstrated now that we'll far exceed those promises that we made. Because before we put anything in our manifesto, we had an internal review. And we've come from a place where we have had a substantial tenure in government, and we've had the experience at producing budgets and dealing with estimates, so we knew what was realizable given the revenue forecast, even from opposition days, that were going to be available to us, or the revenue that would be available over this period. So the promises were based in realism and grounded in analysis, unlike what the opposition does. As I said, I need to return to this question that I dealt with last week. It's often disjointed. They call for things based on, so somebody visits an area and then suddenly makes a call, I want this done, I want that done. They don't fit their ideas into a consistent framework. They don't look at it from a macro perspective. They don't look at the revenue sources, whether they can accommodate those ideas and over long term in a sustainable way. So that's why they can't be taken seriously. Not because they are PNC, but because their ideas are so flawed and they're not grounded based on analysis. Like yesterday, I was told that Ramjatan, in a forum again every day, he posted again there that when publicly saying, oh, one of his colleagues, that the ExxonMobil contract should be renegotiated, that is the contract on the starboard block. He was saying it's the best thing in the world, and the PPP had drafted in 2012 a model agreement, and they were stuck with this model agreement with 2016 that they couldn't change, and therefore they got a 1% increase in the royalty. Now, what was tangibly different is that they renegotiated the contract in 2016, the production agreement now, with a new timeline. And at that time, we had 3 billion barrels of proven reserves, which we didn't have any time before. In 1999, when Janet Jagan signed the agreement, or 2008, after the force majeure was lifted because we had resolved the Suriname maritime boundary, then Exxon restarted their exploration activities in 2008 after that force majeure was lifted. So he now says, oh, the PPP basically constrained us in negotiating that agreement, but it's a great agreement in any case. And that is not borne out by the facts. It's just excuses. It's an embarrassing sort of excuse for a person who is not known for his in-depth thinking on this matter, but for God's sake, at least you should know basics. You should know basics. And then he says, oh, look at what they did now. In the same post, he said, look what they did now. They changed the royalty from 2% to 10%. They've changed the taxes, the corporate taxes, from 0 to 10%, and now have reduced the cost recovery from 75 to 65%. And this is why CGX will not now develop their reserves. So imagine this is a leader of a party saying this. The fact is that CGX explored, they had an exploration, they had a long period. They've now requested for 2 years more on the agreement, which to do an appraisal as to whether they would have enough resources from the well that they said they found, that was drilled recently, and they said they found some oil, whether that is commercially viable. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with our new fiscal terms or the new PSA. And he's saying now, oh, look at how the PPP is putting pressure on these oil companies now. That is going to be the reason why CGX can't develop the reserves. It is an embarrassing thing. And I hope that people understand this, because they would run over to Glenn Lal and say, oh, we support, just to get publicity, we support the renegotiating of the contract. And then post all of these senseless things. Trotman then says in his book, he says, somehow implied that Jagdeo and the PPP approved the tax concessions to ExxonMobil. He said he was told that Jagdeo was briefed. Told by whom about this? But the fact is that they signed the agreement in June of 2016, and he is claiming that some document went to Parliament in 2018, August 2016. So after the signing of the agreement, now for a sensible person, a reporter to in the Kaicho News, they should ask, so what if the Parliament did not approve the fiscal concessions? What if Parliament didn't approve it because they had the majority. Would that have changed the PSA that you signed? Because the concessions were enshrined in the document that he signed on to several months before he went to Parliament. If anything, he should be facing consequences because he's admitting that he signed an agreement without parliamentary approval on the fiscal terms, and in that agreement, all of the same things that people say are too generous, the fiscal concessions, were enshrined in the document he signed. It does not make sense. I see AFC is celebrating 18 years. It's 18 years of failure and sycophancy to the failure and pure sycophancy. And a great deal of corruption. If you look at the most corrupt ministers under the last government, they were AFC ministers. And I can tell you who they are, and you've seen cases filed against them. We have documented this. We've documented this. We've filed court cases. We have, the audit reports will demonstrate this. So this is something, I digressed a bit there, but let me come back to the core issue. We are preparing for the budget. We've done lots of reviews. We're looking at new plans for next year to continue with, as I said, a vision that we have. And the projects and programs that will be implemented next year will move us closer to that vision. They don't have a vision, they don't have an economic plan, and that is why they could not come up with a single project, not a power project, not a road project, nothing else for a vision. Everything that APNU did, the East Coast Road was done under the PPP. The West Coast Road they completed under the PPP. The Sheriff Street that they worked on was awarded under the PPP. If you look at almost all the projects there. So, Norton, we're not stealing your ideas. Their ideas are dated too. If you listen to him, he's stuck in the 70s, in the period of development economics from that era. Now the world has gone through a lot of changes since the 70s, and so too have the prevailing economic policies in the world. We've moved from things like collective self-reliance, which is feed, clothe, and house the nation, consistent with that. We've gone through periods when we have state control of key assets, the Asian model where the state was investing in leading sectors in the economy, then to monetarism. A lot has changed, Norton, over those years. And you're still repeating those things that have no relevance or limited relevance today. It's not because Norton is saying it, it's just because they're bad ideas, we can't go forward with them. They would lead us into a more disastrous situation. So forgive me that we're not dealing with that. We've gone back on power supply. The president has instructed, we're just as concerned as the citizens because people call us every day. And we're just as concerned as an ordinary citizen who faces blackout every single day. And it's atrocious. So, but that doesn't mean that the explanations we give are not valid, because the explanations were quite clear that this is a result of several things. One is a lack of investments by the government in the past, APNU government, after they killed the hydro. 165 megawatts should have come in to the power grid of new power in 2017 through that hydro that was killed. They did not put in place any new power plant. So things happen with a lag. We're still running this country and supplying power with power plants that were bought by the PPP some 20 years old, 24 years old, in Kingston and all these places. And so that is it. Then the second thing is that we started subsidizing power when the oil prices went up. So everyone who was self-generating, because it was economically feasible to do so, all the big people, they jump onto the grid, because now their cost of generating based on the higher fuel prices will be higher than if they buy power from GPL. In the past, it used to be cheaper, but because of higher fuel prices. So they've moved over. Thirdly, it's the growth in demand. So these are three things. That's why we're trying to get people off. We bought several units since we got into office. Another 30 megawatts will come into the system by mid-December. We're hoping, we've already tendered for 34 megawatts of solar panel. That would bring relief to many parts of the country. So, and we are looking for additional power now, but we're trying to fix the issue definitively with the gas to energy power plant. It's simple. It's simple as that. So we're trying to fix it in the medium term. In a year and a half, will be fixed definitively with lower power. But we have to struggle through, we're struggling through. And that is largely because of APNI. That's not an excuse, that's a reality, that's the analysis. We're not happy with it. We're not happy with it because it does affect people, our people. And the president has made it clear, he read the Riot Act to GPL, because sometimes we believe that some of it is not just because of the availability of the genocide, but also some negligence. We have to take tough action. And so he's directed them to deal with that at a specific press conference later today. I said before that every minister will be briefing you on their sector by the end of the year, so you'll get a more detailed understanding of our achievements there and the setbacks we've faced. But so that will come. They are preparing for this issue. At the press conference, there were a number of other things that were raised. As I said before, we don't need, you've seen all the statements coming out from the government of Guyana on the border issue. We're ensuring that these statements are consistent with our case at the ICJ, that our lawyers review these statements too. We are ensuring that our statements have national support through a consultative mechanism with the opposition. Next week, we plan to have debate on a motion in the parliament. So, on the other hand, and our statements are very measured, we stick with the law and the facts of the case. That this matter was settled since 1899, definitively settled through a commission. Venezuela accepted that the report of the commission, the borders were demarcated. They accepted this for a very long time until they sought to reopen this issue. That our move to the ICJ is consistent with the Geneva Agreement, and now that we are at the ICJ, that's the only place that will finally resolve their claim that the 1899 award is flawed. We are not moving away from the ICJ process that is supported by the global community. We've seen strong statements on their referendum coming out from the international community. At the OAS, you would have followed the debates at the OAS in CARICOM, and a statement from the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. The referendum is infringing not only on the jurisdiction of the ICJ unilaterally, or not infringing, but seeks to repudiate that jurisdiction unilaterally, but also is dangerous for Guyana because of its potential for the annexation of a significant part of our territory. And this has been condemned globally. Our lawyers have advised, and we have national consensus on this, that we should seek provisional relief from the ICJ, because the referendum and some questions in the referendum undermine the very case that the ICJ has ruled that it has jurisdiction on. So we are working in a deliberate fashion. We're not going to be responding on a daily basis to jingoism, the belligerent language that comes out of Venezuela from various public officials there. We've seen one from the Vice President of Venezuela, very repugnant, and it's very aggressive, even questioning whether they need CARICOM and the solidarity of CARICOM. So Maduro says one thing about CARICOM, strengthening relations with CARICOM, and then the Vice President of Venezuela saying something else, almost disparaging the views of CARICOM. So I hope our colleagues in the region would also follow what's going on in that country. There is I saw today a letter written by a former minister from Venezuela, and I'm going to share a copy with you. It gives an interesting perspective on why this referendum is taking place. This is a former minister in Venezuela. I hope that the media will get hold of it and appropriately report on it. So we're moving forward in a joint way. In the last week, I've seen, again, the fringe elements, the Rickford Burke and the Bench Cops and what's Lincoln Lewises of the world. The fringe elements, they're there, the extreme elements trying to chisel away at the national solidarity we have. But they failed to do so. They're trying to chisel away at that. And by misrepresenting our views, my own views on what I've said in the past, clipping tapes conveniently like video footage to support a narrative that they're pursuing. It's all nonsense. People know that we have solidarity. There's never been a case, an instance, not one single instance, where any political party in Guyana or any leader in Guyana has moved away from the finality of the 1899 award, that resolve our land boundaries definitively. So do not succumb to these crazy people. They are out there, they're only looking for distraction, and it's a distraction for their own failures too. Their own failures, and often to hide some of the illegality that some of them are engaged in. But I'm not going to pay too much attention to them today. Now, let me make it clear once again about the Venezuelan presence here. And this has, over the past week, we have seen some reprehensible incidents targeting Venezuelans. Totally reprehensible. I've seen one video that made my stomach turn. We have to understand our own history. When we had a difficult time here, I think people forget that sometimes. When we had no freedom here, when we were ranked below Haiti, when we didn't have food here, couldn't find jobs, large numbers of our people fled this country, fled from oppression and hunger. There were economic migrants that fled to Venezuela, Suriname, the Caribbean, North America, everywhere in the world. Many of them are our family, or our families, because almost every Guyanese family probably have someone abroad who've left here at one time or another for betterment. We have always insisted that people treat our people with dignity, respect, but that they be compliant with the laws of the country in which they live. I remember the personal fight I had at CARICOM level, and with the help I got from some leaders in CARICOM when they had a bench in Barbados where our people used to be placed on that bench all the time and discriminated against. In many parts of the region, we fought this for our people to be treated wherever they are, treated decently. We still have Guyanese who migrated and live in Venezuela. Just imagine if somebody had, even whatever the accusations are, if people steal, they say you steal, strip your daughter or mother or someone's sister, and say walk down the road just like that because of who they are, they're migrants. Just imagine how we would react here in Guyana to this. We'd be up in arms, outraged by this happening in another country with our people. This here, what they do here, can harm our people elsewhere, where some of them still live in these countries if there is retaliation. And people have to understand this. The migrants who are here, the majority of them, you have seen how they've come to this country. They've come with very little. Many of them were settled, they were doing well. They've come with like the babies and everything else. You know, babies, some clothing and stuff. They come here because they feel that they can have a better life back in the country. Maybe they were not born here, they speak Spanish, but their parents came from here. They have a connection here. And the majority of them who are here come from that. They're cut from that cloth. They're people, our people. They have Guyanese blood. So we have to treat them. I remember how this thing is. We don't know sometimes the hardship. One time I'm looking for a gardener, and because I'm telling you this because it bothered me a lot until today. And someone said they met someone and he's going to come the following morning. So I guess I wasn't home, and the guy came. He's from Venezuela. He was 14 years old. 14 years old. His parents, he spoke Spanish. Parents are Guyanese though. And the security told him, you can't work here, you're underage. You're only 14. And he stood by my gate there. They said for 2 hours I wasn't home. And I was just sitting down there crying. Crying just because he was looking for a job. Sat down by the gate. He wanted to work. He is 14 years old. It bothers me until now because they have sent him away and I can't track him down back to see how you can help him. But this is the sort of thing. People come looking because obviously they didn't have anything like to eat, what I found out later, you know, like he was talking to some of the security. So when we talk about these people, we have to differentiate. Now, there are people who come here who are Venezuelans, who have no connection to us. As refugees, they're entitled to the protection of the state. In every part of the world, there are some conventions how you treat refugees. They're economic migrants. You have to treat people with dignity. And we can't, because we fear that there may be infiltration by a few Venezuelans who can bring, threaten our sovereignty. And there may very well be those. Treat all of these people in a particular manner. Throw them out of their homes. Some of them started getting thrown out after that Monday press conference by the opposition. So we express that concern. It's not that we are unmindful of the concern that we have a border issue with Venezuela and we have to be careful about settling people. We express that concern in opposition. But we've always maintained that people must be treated decently. And so when I see this, they're looking for the guy who did that. And he's going to, who treated those people in that manner. And he's going to face some serious consequences. I hope they treat him appropriately. But we are not going to be part of any movement to promote xenophobia in our country against people. We were a nation at one stage of migrants. We migrated every part of the world to look for a better life. And now our people are coming back. We are happy that they're coming back from North America, everywhere in the world. There are lots of people who left here and went to the US, they're coming back too. Those who went to Venezuela, so because their children speak Spanish. So if you're born in the US, you can get a citizenship, but if you're born in Venezuela of Guyanese parentage too, or Suriname, you shouldn't get the citizenship. That is what Ramjatan was implying. Our people must have empathy to this. I'm not saying that we must not safeguard our borders. We are strong on that, you know that. And we must watch out for any trend where people who are not complying with our laws, whoever they are, Venezuelans or others, they'll face the full brunt of the law. But this whole thing, I had to say something about that outside of the border issue. There's one thing else that's bothering me is this thing, and maybe today I'm just saying this because we started celebrating Halloween, and it's a free country and people should that's their right to do that. Everybody. We defend people's right to do things. So celebrate whatever you want. Now, but I'm just urging schools, particularly private schools, that when they do so, that they do it in a manner that doesn't cause differentiation. So you're free to celebrate, do whatever you want. It's, as I said before, a free country. People love their children, they want to buy nice things for them. But I've had a number of things come. Just imagine when the school hosts a Halloween party and they get these kids to buy costumes. These costumes are very expensive sometimes. I know a number of people who go to send their children to private school, who barely scrape to send their children to school. They're not all wealthy, but they want their children to go to a private school, so they collect money and they send them. Then there's a party and all the kids have to now get some costume. They can't afford, the parents can't afford the costume. I can't imagine if I'm a father or a mother and my child comes home to me and say, I want this, and I can't buy it for them, knowing that all the other kids will get a costume in the class. It's how it would make the parents feel. And then also the child, when they go to school now, for the activity they don't have, they also feel different and maybe diminished. We must do so in a manner, they can I don't say, because government shouldn't really get involved in this, and I don't want to be misunderstood. But get everybody to be creative and get a t-shirt and get all the kids to reconfigure it, paint things on it, do stuff like that, make so that they all feel at a particular level. But privately they can do whatever they want. I'm talking about schools particularly, because how it makes kids feel. And it's something that I hope that we think about. We're going to probably have some talks with people, but not strong enforcement action, but just something that talk, because it's about these children. Now let me switch to something more contentious. So I saw a big hue and cry about the fact-finding missions that a team of people coming from abroad will be doing a fact-finding mission. So first of all, it was thought that the group from New York was the group that came here on the fact-finding mission. But I saw this now, New York State Senator saying, visit was not fact-finding mission in Guyana. So they came here, a number of senators, and they had a look around. And they met with everybody, and no doubt they met with Norton, and Norton gave them the usual discrimination and everything else. But they were not here on any fact-finding mission. So apparently there's another group of people who went to the forum, Rickford Burke's forum, and they issued a statement that they want to do some fact-finding in Guyana. So I'm not going to say much about that. But if this group wants to be credible, first of all, they should do a fact-finding on Rickford Burke. And what will you find now is a two-bit hustler. That would be your conclusion, who's used discrimination as his tool for raising money. You will find a person who was closely linked with Mr. Desmond Hoyt, who had to, I think, exit this country because of financial misappropriation. A man who had, I don't want to speak a bit about this, but who was entangled in some issues at the police station, I think, across the river for molestation or something like that. And then you will find a person who is wanted in Guyana now for extorting a businessman. And we know the facts of that here. Everyone, the people have the recording, they have everything else. Extorting businessmen who come. That's who you're dealing with. That's the first fact-finding they should do. They should fact-find the person who organized the event. You can't go to an event that excludes the government on Guyana, talking about the future of Guyana, exclude the government, and then say you're credible and you want to have a fact-finding mission on Guyana. So we're not bothered about this too much. We're not bothered about this because our records stand. Our records stand. This is a more integrated country than in the United States of America. Our people, you would find more cases of discrimination against Afro-Americans in the United States of America, in the very states that some of these senators are coming from, than you will ever find here in Guyana. So if they want to really look at fact-finding, maybe people should start in the US and then you come here. But our records are clear. We can demonstrate in every sphere of government, from allocation of resources to employment to every other aspect, that our records can withstand scrutiny. But they should start with fact-finding Rickford Burke himself. Now I see this issue about procurement commission says NPTA procurement entities not supplying documents for probes, so that they may have to move to the High Court. I think this is a shrill kind of approach, that all they had to do was to say to the president, call the president or the Minister of Finance and say, we have not received the document. We asked the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance said, I'm told by MPTAB that all of the documents in all of the cases, including TPU, they were sent over, except in one file, and that they would send that shortly. The Minister of Finance reported that he was told by MPTAB. If that's not true, all they had to do was to make contact with the Minister of Finance. Oh, they have to move to the High Court. I think there's just a shrill headline looking for publicity. Could have been done otherwise, because there's nothing that we've done that we would not supply to the procurement agency. If they need the information, they will get it. That's the directive from the president, the cabinet. If it hasn't been done, you just contact the minister. So it's a headline there. I've seen and saying this now, again, I reiterate about all these cases where, because that's a new thing. Talk about corruption generally. When we're in opposition, we talk about corruption specifically. We talk about corruption when there were 3 years of no declaration of the statements to the Integrity Commission by APNU. They dismantled that for ministers. So we don't know the starting point. For 3 years, the president, ministers, nobody declared their statements of income and asset to the Integrity Commission under APNU. The first 3 years break in 23 years from 2000 took place under APNU. We talk about Durban Park specifically. 600 million missing their audit report, another 600 million in unpaid bills, I heard, nearly $1.2 billion. We talk about the unsolicited bid that Patterson took to the cabinet by passing the tender board, contrary to the Procurement Act, and got the cabinet to approve a contract. Cabinet under our laws cannot approve a contract. I took that power away when I was president, and they can only offer no objection. The approval of contracts must be done by a technical agency. The cabinet cannot approve contracts. Even if they disagree with a recommendation from NPTAB, they can't say change it. They have to send back a note to NPTAB to say we disagree for the following reason, and have NPTAB review it. That's the process in our law that we passed. We removed one of the few countries in the world that removed the cabinet from the approval of contracts. People don't see that. In the APNU period, they reversed that contrary to the law and started approving contracts back at the cabinet. We spoke about it specifically. We spoke about the land sales. Jordan transferring lands to people giving them titles without them even paying, which is illegal. They didn't pay the treasury, we did that. We talk about that. We talk about the sale of the land for the wharf. A 30 million US facility sold for 100,000 US dollars. We were very specific. APNU comes in generally. Oh, there's big corruption in the country, like the Gulsuran. I notice, you notice Gulsuran hasn't come back as yet. When we talk about his breach of the Audit Act, that he was talking so much about, and the breach of the procurement law in 2015 when he was handpicked and given those forensic audits. He hasn't come back. I didn't see another letter being written. I'm waiting for them to file the case so we can go to the court and I will demonstrate that he didn't have any integrity, because he'd have to answer in the box those questions. So he didn't come back. General, remember he said 35 billion, 50 billion loss every year through procurement fraud, but they don't name one project. This is their campaign tool. So I need to come back to that every week and talk a bit about it. Now, we as citizens to explore this. We allow robust review consistent with the laws, and we heard there's an industry, including in Trinidad and Tobago, that some people go around saying they can arrange meetings with ministers. I've warned about this before. There's an industry here that says, I could arrange a meeting with a government official, you give me some money. Anybody who tells you that, and if you pay them to do that, then you're stupid if you pay anyone to arrange a meeting. And secondly, if we find out that you're doing this, you never have a meeting, which you can get by just going through the normal process. Because there are lots of people who believe they can cut corners. I heard in Trinidad there's a group who's going to other businessmen to say we can arrange meetings for you in Guyana. I hope that is not true. The reason I'm bringing that out here so people would know, those who would be duped and think they will get it. Now, soon you will be seeing the award for the marketing of our crude, and for all three FPSOs. We received 25 bidders. We had 25 bids, basically. And now they're having discussion with the top 3 bidders. The key variable here is credibility and price. So price now is an important factor. So let me just say that we're very pleased now with this bid, because we have moved from the early period under APNU where we were paying a marketing commission to 0 marketing commission, and now we're going to get a premium in these bids. They will pay us a premium above the daily Brent average. So for the last 5 days, that's the basis on which it's being done historically. So, but you're going to get more details now. So we are pleased now. We've seen a shift moving from having to pay a marketing commission to sell our oil to now 0 marketing commission. So now we are getting a price per barrel above what the benchmark that we were using. So, but that will be made public shortly. We've put out a draft discussion paper on the gas strategy. We've put out a disclaimer too at the bottom when we posted it, that this is, the government has not had its detailed input into this document as yet. We know there are several issues there that we ourselves in the government may have issues with, but it's a good discussion paper. It's in the public domain. So all the people who have views on these matters now is your time to share these views with the government of Guyana before we finalize this document. So if you don't believe you have enough gas there and we shouldn't pursue it, tell us so. If you believe that there shouldn't be enough a lot of concessions to develop these, then say so now, but justify it, of course. So all the views we can get now. That's how we work. So don't come later and say, I had a view and I didn't express it, or I didn't want to. The companies also are going to express their views. Like Exxon, we share that, they would have to look at it. We have internally our own ideas about what we want. We want it, the idea, as the paper suggested, is how do we monetize our gas reserves. That's the idea. So we would have to look to work through all the challenges, like associated gas, how we can convert associated gas, probably looking at Pluma separately, maybe partnerships. What would be the best way of using this, the gas, LNG, ammonia, all of these things are explored in the document, but it's a discussion paper more than a finished strategy from the government, which it puts in the public domain. We'll probably have to get all the comments in and then incorporate them, and then maybe do a short consultation again before we finalize. So I want you to see this as blank canvas now, and all the people who are so smart, some of them have really great ideas, the Sanzillo and stuff. This is his time now to share their in-depth idea discussion, their in-depth thing. Don't say to us, don't develop it because it's causing climate change, because the whole world is developing their gas reserves, Europe and everybody else. They're expanding, the United States. So don't come and tell us that. If you come and tell us that, then we're going to ignore that. So if you're some of these NGOs, these fringe NGOs that want to stop everything here. So don't tell us that. But if you have productive comments on how to do this and all of that, and what you believe would be the best way, then this is the time to share it, your views on these matters. I saw APA once again failing to stop the carbon credit program. Now, because they were put on the spot and they were exposed by the appeal process that they went through, ART, this is an international organization, they filed a complaint to stop the credit. There was a review, an independent reviewer, and they found that the complaints of APA were had no merits whatsoever. Now, the APA always defends FP, free prior informed consent. They had no consent from not a single village to act in their name. All 242 villages support the initiative. They got their money, they're utilizing the money. They're on their own, acting in the name of Amerindian villages, and they're exposed globally for this. This is a sort of corruption. They do this to make money. And we have received, you saw the assessment, tens of millions of US dollars they've received in grant funding over the years. So this was exposed. Now they're trying to blame the ART because their appeal. They stopped their appeal process. They're still trying to appeal the decision, but I think they recognize now they would not have any ground to stand on. So I saw their position was reported widely, but my office issued a statement the same night, where minutes after they did. I didn't see it get the same sort of publicity, where we debunked all that they said in that document. I think I'm going to end here. there are a few other things, but I'm just going to end there. Thank you. Yes, please. The ministry, I told the ministry, I saw some reports about them not maintaining their website. I said to the ministry to make sure that the site is maintained and up to date. On all the information that we said should be in the public domain, must be in the public domain in a timely manner. That's the Ministry of Natural Resources.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice President Jagdeo, Kim Alpi from Ireland.
Yeah.
About the gas strategy, could you say Guyana has some bilateral partners who have a lot of experience with gas? People like Qatar, which is a world leader in gas development. Have you sought the counsel of those partners to contribute to the strategy?
So we had discussions with the Qataris on gas before we finalized the strategy, and also in the implementation of the strategy. We hope to work closely with all of our partners. So this is an ongoing process, but to ask whether we have been receiving help from Qatar, we've received help from Qatar in several areas in some of the documents that we've been producing. I don't know specifically about this one, but in several documents. And Qatar will be a very important sounding board for us because of the scale at which they're doing things. We will never be able to achieve the scale of Qatar and the size of investments on gas. They just have a massive development on gas now that Glenn Lyle didn't know about when I came to his program, and he said 2 years ago, and the world was moving away from gas at that time, and I had to point out to him it's not so. He had it wrong.
Okay. Also about the strategy, it feels like there is a lot that it doesn't say.
It's more of a, as I said before, more of a discussion paper, because we already started getting feedback on where the gaps are and everything else. So we appreciate that. And that is why we put it out early, because to do an internal rework would have taken a while. And we can, from that internal, which has to happen, but we can benefit from the public view too, as we do the internal rework. So both could be done simultaneously.
Maybe it would be helpful if there was like a terms of reference or something, so people would know what exactly is.
No, but we put out a short statement. We said, here is what we have for discussion. You share your views. Now people can share their views on the paper or generally on a strategy, their strategy for the country. So this is the discussion. We're waiting to gather all these comments. We're going to get comments from maybe the Qataris, from Exxon, from the public, from Sanzil, hopefully. Your Kaichor News will come up with a whole range of comments, and then we will look at everything together.
Okay, just lastly on the gas, could you say who's the consultant that drafted it?
Yes, the ministry has the details of this, so you can get that from the ministry.
Okay. You mentioned filing court cases against some AFC members in relation to these so-called corrupt AFC ministers. Could you say whether any of those are in relation to how they treated with the oil and gas sector under their term?
No, so what you see now is an entire rewrite of our history on this agreement, aided and abetted by the Kaichor News. So the same people who were the villains now, or at that time, who we had to fight against to reveal the contract, to reveal the signing bonus. Suddenly they're the heroes in the Kaichor News now. Trotman now makes a ton of excuses, lame excuses, but gets the front page as though he is one of the leading advocates for transparency in the country when we know otherwise. And so that is what we have to confront. Murky waters, muddied by the Kaichor news too, muddied by the Kaichor news, because their obsession with telling lies and dragging everybody out to make a statement. They had some lady even who opposed it. I saw a very interesting video saying to Glenlal that, anyhow, let me don't get into that. It was an interesting video saying Jagdeo is a devil in high place or something like that. It's cussing Glenlal. But by the way, so what happens is that we have made, if you look at whether there's illegality, this is a bad agreement. Governments make bad agreement, and I hope they're penalized for it. These people made a bad agreement, and then they're trying to make a virtue out of a bad agreement. A virtue, like Ram Jatan is saying in these private groups. He's making a virtue out of it. Now, a bad agreement might not be an illegal agreement because they're authorized at that time to do those. So they have the reins of government, but they should be exposed for making a bad agreement. And so far, we've not been able to demonstrate illegality. Trotman says, oh, it's not me now, it's the cabinet that tell him to sign that. Not borne out often by the facts. It's Jagdeo who approved these concessions now, although the concession that he signed the thing in 2016, June of 2016. All of that. So we have not been able to identify an illegality where we know that it is a bad agreement. That is it. So that is why you wouldn't find in that case, it's not so straightforward because it's muddy, murky, as the one where Patterson breached their laws, where he gave their consultant $70 million and no scale was dropped to buy scales for Guyana, vehicle scales. No scale came into the country. We can't find the scale, but that guy was their consultant for the election, suddenly supplying scales. That is a straightforward case that you have now before the court. And so that is the difference. Yes. All right, go.
Two more issues. Number one, GPL said that it is pursuing increasing our capacity in time for Christmas so that they won't have to cut off the power. Is it anticipated that the new power we'll get in December will be sufficient until the gas and energy purchase?
No. I don't think so. At this pace, with more and more people switching to the government now, coming over, and given the state of the equipment, we have to continue to secure power. You heard what I said last week about not locking into long-term agreements. But I think we're going to explore agreements up to 2 years. So we have to continue investing until that power plant comes in there.
Okay,
because there's a growing demand, a lot more housing, new houses, new business, you see them all the time. A single hotel may use 0.5 megawatt of power, the demand. And we have seven hotels going up now. So you can imagine what will happen for the demand for power with all the new business and everything else, leaving out switching. So we have to continue investing.
Finally, on the border issue, when the government and the opposition had put out a joint statement, one of the things they agreed to was a comprehensive PR strategy. Mr. Norton said that you guys haven't actually met to plan.
Okay, I don't want to get, because there are structured engagements with the opposition on these matters. Gail Chishiro in the Parliament, Minister Todd in a joint committee. So these matters must be addressed at that level. I don't want to address these matters here.
Mr. Jack, you mentioned one of our research.
Yes.
Can you say what are the names of the three companies that the government will be negotiating for the petroleum marketing? That's my first question.
So what happened is that you, as I said before, you will get the details. So it was tendered in this fashion. You can bid on a single oil from a single FPSO or a combination of all. So if in one case you had one bidder who bid only on a single FPSO but with a high premium. So since you bid that way, you may have to give that bidder there, that one, if they can satisfy now the other conditions that they are capable, well, not capable, but the financial flows. Then on the two others, there are some clarification. For example, one has come up with an idea, we will give you a premium and then X cents in training. Or alternately, we can switch it back to the total premium and not forgo the training. So if they do that, combine the two, they offer the same, I don't want to get into details, then they end up being the next highest, and then they will probably get the other two FPSOs. So you're going to get all the explanations. It's the highest premium. Once it's concluded, the ministry is working through this. You'll get the names of all of the people and an explanation as to how it's done. I didn't want to get into details, but I just wanted to say to you, we're very, very pleased now moving from paying marketing commission, right, to zero in the last set of people. Now this set is paying us a price above the international market.
Going back to GPL, among the factors you mentioned was the fact that people were shifting off to the grid because of cheaper costs. In the planning with respect to taking the decision to...
We had planned this for when the new power plant comes on. We were planning at that time that because the price reduction will be from 22 cents to 11 cents, and nobody would be able to generate at that level privately. They would all come over. They've come over earlier because we started subsidizing power because we couldn't pass on the additional benefits. We couldn't allow power prices to go up. It would have pushed up the cost of living.
Right, so to that, on that point about us, did you forecast as well that you would have had increased demand that would have outstripped the supply?
Yes, but if you look at this statement, did you see the statement from GPL? Yes. They showed that GPL's development and expansion plan 2023, which was done recently, projected 186 megawatts. So it forecast some switching. We have had switching, an increase in physical demand, a spike in physical demand because of more air condition, a whole range of stuff. So, but GPL will answer all of these questions. I don't want to make excuses for nobody here because I'm not into that business. I'm upset myself with people, so you go and ask them all the tough questions there. Let them answer, and I'll be listening to hear what they tell you if it's any different than what they're telling us.
And finally, sir, to what extent will your party be capitalizing on the returning banks in Venezuela, as well as their offspring for the 2025 elections?
So capitalizing is it's almost a word like we're prostituting ourselves, like to just bring these people back for votes. Why do you think more indigenous people now vote for us? Because we work for almost 30 years to change the lives of people in those communities. Why do you think that We won Bartica and Madia and many other communities because we work to change people's lives. We're hoping that everybody would vote for us in the PPP. That's what parties should do. They should work for people's votes. We didn't go and tell Maduro to create hard economic conditions there so that these Venezuelans will come back, the migrants who are Guyanese basically, who have left, come back to Guyana to vote for the PPP. Did we cause that to happen? That they come back here? So they're here. The reality, they're here now. So if they, based on our constitution and the laws of our country, they're eligible for citizenship. You are, under our laws now, if you live abroad, you can register. You live abroad, you can register, come home, register and vote under the new constitution that we all agree to. They'll be living here. If they choose to register, and vote, they have rights just like other citizens. These are Guyanese. So if they vote, should we say to them, don't vote PPP? APNU should also want them to vote and make a case and tell them we have a great plan for the future. But of course it can't violate our laws, to say if you vote for us, we'd allow everybody, whether you're eligible for citizenship or not, we'll give you citizenship. You have to have a criteria, the established criteria that we didn't establish, that we historically been established for citizenship here. Oh, so what's wrong with people who are Guyanese voting for you if you work for that vote? Why should a political party not do that? Every political party. If you start working for people to support you, then every day you, rather than make these nonsensical statements or sit in your offices like APNU did in the 5 years, they wouldn't go underground, then they would have gone underground and kept their promises to the people that they made promises to. We are keeping our promises because we want people to continue to support the party, the PPP, and change this party. What's wrong with that? Why should we be embarrassed about it? And then this other point, as though people who support us should not benefit. Oh, this PPP man got a contract. Many of these people are contractors. So what if they bid there and they're citizen just like anybody else and they get a contract? Oh, the hits and jam people got a contract because somehow they may be pro-PPP. So they forget the argument, oh, we're not giving contracts, that's what they're saying to any Afro-Guyanese. Oh, they got too big a contract, it's nearly 400 million now, because they may be pro-PPP. As though, I'm not saying they are, but as though pro-PPP people must not have anything to. This is pure nonsense. And it's trying to put us on the defensive, and we're not going on the defensive on this. All Guyanese are eligible for all the benefits. We don't do litmus tests like they did. You check the people who got contracts on the APNU. They were not going through bidding process. You have a bidding process now. So however flawed it is, it's a bidding process. At least you have records that could be analyzed. You find out for all of the works in Georgetown, when APNU got into office, $3 to $4 billion of work, which bid was done in New Georgetown. You go back and check that period, nearly $4 billion of work. They just call in their people connected to them and then just handed the contract to them. So I said before, it's not like we tell the people to flee to Guyana, but that's the fear of APNU, but it's not a real fear because you can work with people to get their support. They need an excuse for losing elections. The APNU has always tried to generate excuses. It's a list one time, notwithstanding the fact that we showed it. It's the statements of poll that are wrong, then it is now the Venezuelans are going to cause them to lose, or it is typical PNC behavior. And in targeting these people unfairly, including the Guyanese who were born here and some of them come back now, they're causing this rise in people, like feel that these people are threatening our way of life. So suddenly they get a little bit more hostile to them. We shouldn't promote that. That's
Sir, there are those things.
yeah.
When you listen to the statements of the political opposition, including today when they spoke about the Venezuela situation in terms of influence, you get the impression that the ACNU and the EX never managed the situation as well. So I want to take you back 2020 and before. What was the situation like then? What systems were in place for dealing with influx and so on?
So you recall that they had absolutely nothing, basically. Absolutely nothing. The thing is that you would remember, just read, they were going to create settlements in Region 1. In fact, they were trying to acquire land, to create settlements to put the Venezuelans there. Just imagine you created settlements in Region 1. Now they want to find what's the concentration of people, Venezuelans in Escobar. They were going to settle people there. Look at my statements as opposition leader. I said we are opposed to that. Settlements. We support Guyanese, the Venezuelans who are out, but you must not create settlements because it could have long-term implications. We were opposed to that. You recall the Haitians. The Haitians were not helped by ACNU. They were trafficked through Guyana by ACNU. They were exploited by groups of smugglers, people smugglers, who were collecting money from the Haitians, collecting them at the airport, ferrying them to the border. And the Haitians, when Felix was asked about it, they talk about how many Venezuelans are here now. People come through different ports. The Haitians, like I said last week, were coming through mainly the Chedijagan International Airport. And 40,000 he couldn't account for. He said, oh, I have their record coming into the country, but we don't have exit records. The people had left already illegally. He didn't even know they left the country. And the thing is, that made it look like a race thing with Haitians, just smuggling. The same gang tried to bring in the Bangladeshis. When they switched, maybe they thought, oh, the PPP, because it's Bangladeshi, look like Indians, so the PPP would now go after them and stop the smuggling there. They would stop it for the Haitians. Well, we stopped that too, because it's the same gang. They don't have loyalty to race. They have loyalty to money. They smuggle people, and we shut them down. I told you at one press conference how we shut down a whole gang of people who had chartered an aircraft, 262 Bangladeshis. Nobody knew about it. They were getting permission to land them here. We stopped it. It was on the way to Lisbon, transiting in Lisbon and coming here. We said, no, can't come. Same gangs were operating. We're clear about that. So this is typical ACNU. Everything that they didn't do in the past, now they're so super efficient now in opposition, but distorting the past again.
On the point about power supply, the large consumers that are on the grid, that are being purchased off the grid, what has the response been like from those persons?
Oh, please ask GPL about that. I don't want to get sucked into this thing getting me worked up. The GPL, right? Today they're going to have a press conference. The president directed Minister Indar and the others ask all the questions there. It gets me worked up too. President is angry about it.
Understand, sir.
Okay.
The last thing.
Yeah. Yes, go on.
The last thing. Last week, you announced a little consortium. I mean, it was in the news a lot. A little consortium of women did successfully. But what does that really mean for the average Guyanese who see this story?
Oh, okay. So ACNU is saying that somehow they made the people get this consortium of Guyanese. I think very, very progressive. I met with these young women. I'm really impressed. They are looking at a number of things, not just that. We met with a larger group, a consortium of Afro-Guyanese that came out of our engagements from the other thing. They're looking at a housing development and stuff. Last week the president met with them. I was there debating. So, but it's not because they're Afro-Guyanese, they're Guyanese. We're proud of that. I'm proud that any Guyanese, that's why I said including Glenn Lal, could have bid for this. These girls had the courage to work on a partnership with someone and put in bids for 2 blocks, and they won them. They had the courage. They're Guyanese. I don't see them as Afro-Guyanese. I see them as Guyanese, and I'm proud that they had the courage. All of these people who talk a lot, Glenn Lal, all there with his stupidity everywhere else, he didn't have the courage to do that. He talks about how lucrative the sector is. Well, now is the time to prove it. And they did it. They won. So we are working. We're hoping that it will move forward. And they're now be at the negotiating stage. I don't know how far they got, but the ministry will start the negotiations soon to conclude the agreements. And the group assured us they would raise $30 million US, $30 million US to pay upfront as a signing bonus. From those, the Guyanese group alone will get 30 million signing bonus if we conclude, and they have assured us they can conclude it. Just think about that. From the Guyanese group alone, from this group of young women, we'll get 30 million in signing bonus for an exploration contract. And APNU got from Exxon 18 million for a production license. This is what is happening. So people need to understand perspectives here. And then Trotman would say, oh, he is defending national interest. They should be ashamed to even talk about anything. Yes, please. Good afternoon. Yes.
When will GRA and the Ministry of Natural Resources host the independent press conference that you promised? Can you tell us what happened?
The ministry, I told the minister, he said he is preparing it. He do one press conference end of year, but I'd ask him to do it in maybe November. Because I said to him, you should meet, and he said, I'm preparing a press conference to do one on all the issues. So I think we're already are we in November? Yes, but this month, because you don't need to wait to the end of the year to do the year-end press conference. GRA, they're a bit more reluctant because they're a technical agency. So they prefer to work through press releases. But I don't have any issue with the Commissioner General speaking to the public. And this is my public position on these matters. If he chooses to stay silent, it's because he has some fiduciary responsibilities and he can speak about some issues. Not everything is for the news. People tax records, how you approach certain things. They have professional ethics too. Sometimes the newspapers don't realize that the need to know also has to be tempered by the professional ethics of these bodies. That they don't want to be in the public domain all the time.
My second question, during your time as opposition leader, you criticized the coalition for selling out the nation's patrimony to Exxon.
Oh, you're
but
not
when the coalition moved to Parliament to give Exxon a massive tax break, why didn't you or any of the other members?
I dealt with that issue. You heard the whole explanation already. I dealt with that issue. I thought hearing that issue, you wouldn't even ask me the question. I dealt with it before. All right. Move on. I've dealt with that. Yes, please.
Central government is still having to absorb most of city hall duties, such as drainage and irrigation. Can you speak on this?
Almost everything in the city hall, and I hope that the media will watch this amnesty with hawk's eyes. That this amnesty has been the source of corruption in the city hall, where you can call in individual people and negotiate write-offs. If they need an amnesty, they should have an amnesty, but it should be announced what are the terms of the amnesty. So there's no need to meet with people. The clerk or the treasurer can apply those terms. You have X amount of outstanding taxes, we're going to waive X amount of the late charges and part of the principal, if that's the idea, and then it's across the board for everyone. You come in, you look at your outstanding taxes, you get your waiver, you pay. That is how we want it approached. So if they do want an amnesty, but not where the mayor and others can sit in a room and you have to meet them and they then can say, oh, we'll give you 20%, you'll get 30%. That is a big problem. And that is something that we have to watch. So now we made a commitment to the citizens in Georgetown too. We were hoping to win this. Well, it was a long haul to win Georgetown, because this is our new stronghold. Our guys did a great job. In almost every area constituency, we came within a few hundred votes, even those we lost. And we won 11 of the 30 seats, up from 2 years ago, and the 7, now 11. So we have a presence, but we can't control what's going on in there. So we can anticipate that they will continue to do the same thing that they did in the past, pay no heed to the citizens of Georgetown. We can't allow the city to languish. That's why the roads being done, we're putting in. I met with all of the groups in Georgetown, like I did in Berbice. You'd recall I brought all the groups from New Amsterdam, Curriton, all the areas, Portmont, etc. On sports, we have 125 grounds in Berbice. We are assigned $400 million, and they're looking at all the grounds in Berbice to upgrade them. Every one of those grounds. In Georgetown, earlier this week, I met, this week or last week? I'm losing track of time. This week, I think, yes. I met with community groups from North and South Georgetown, all the grounds from Agricola to Cummins Lodge. There are about 30 of those grounds, and some tarmacs, that we set aside resources to fix all of those grounds and tarmacs in the city. So sport, recreational facility in the city too. We're doing the same. We're doing a lot of grounds, maybe 11 across the river, a large number on the East Coast. We just finished quite a big set of infrastructure in Linden. In the Amerindian communities, we give them a grant. 200 communities each got a grant to fix back their sporting facility. Last week I dealt with a lot of this, and I want to say how much. So Georgetown is again, we're looking at recreational facility. We're already doing the roads. The garbage site we had to build outside of Georgetown. We had to move that, the central government. Now they only have to collect the garbage. Drainage, we've started a master plan. We're looking at pumping capacity, mobile as well as fixed. That's why the one at Lilendal. And then the internal drains. The internal drains are going to make a big difference to people. But it's a bit contentious. So we'd have to work with the communities on doing this, because we might have to break people's bridges, and that's troublesome to get the flow. So we have to do it. We can't wait on this Dodo City Council. Not our councillors, or we have some smart councillors. I can't chastise the whole city council, because our guys are pushing, they're smart people, and they're doing extremely well, and they're in there. But we have to do drainage too now in the city. If you follow my meetings yesterday when I went to Alexander Village, this was a complaint of theirs in Rivers View. When I met the people between Sideline Dam Lanes Avenue a few months ago, and yesterday I dropped in on the road. We're doing a large number of culverts on the road. We're doing in the sideline dam to ensure that we have proper drainage in the area the water goes out. They're investing in some amphibious type of excavators, so we can clear canals without having to run on the parapets. There are lots of plans that we have. Yes, please.
Mr. Just one quick question.
Yeah.
With the discussions on the global stock take coming up at 28th, the first global stock take, what do you sort of expect coming out of those discussions? And would that in any way influence any of the development plans, be it monetization strategy or energy development by RECAD?
So they have these periodic stock takes. So I assume that there will be another stock taking exercise that will be pursued through the UNFCCC mechanism. And this will conclude that we're nowhere near achieving the 1.5 degrees, maybe not even 2 degrees above pre-industrial level, that we're heading on a trajectory close to maybe 3 degrees above pre-industrial levels. That is temperature increase. If you look at the earlier IPCC reports, you will see at 2 degrees, we had maybe a 50-50 chance of avoiding catastrophic events. And since then, the situation has worsened. So just imagine where we're heading now. The probability of catastrophic events on that trajectory is even greater than the one calculated by the scientific body to the IPCC years ago. So for me, I know what the results would be even before they complete the stock taking. That is one. That is on emission reduction. Secondly, and they will find also that the pledges made through the Paris Agreement, most of those pledges have not been kept. And that's the stock taking on emission level. The stock taking on the availability of climate finance. The developed world has been very creative in their accounting. And so you have different reports coming from different sources pointing out that they are meeting their commitments and they're very close to the $100 billion per annum that was pledged to the developing world. But there's great variability in the criteria that they apply in the stock taking. So in any stock taking exercise, you have to settle on a common set of criteria that you use. When that pledge was made, it was supposed to be coming incremental and not a switching of development aid to climate finance. So that you have to verify whether that was done. Secondly, when the pledge was made, it was in terms of grant resources, not loan resources. So if you apply those two criteria, you will see that we fall short, and significantly so, of the pledge that was made, because the bulk of the resources that are being made available to the developing world would be in the form of loans, and a lot of that came from switching out of development aid into climate financing. So I almost know, and most people do, what the stock taking exercise would show, but you're going to have a big, long debate about it and question. You're going to have reports, the greenwashing sort of reports coming out of the northern countries, the western countries, about them meeting their commitment. That cannot serve as the basis for moving forward to a solution. That's why you know our position, what we are advocating. A menu approach to net zero that would see the target as a balance sheet rather than a fixed target with only one solution, which is cutting fossil fuel. And we believe that there has to be a major shift in provision of development assistance now, particularly for adaptation for some countries, because at the pace we are going, we're not avoiding some catastrophic events. We have to adapt to those. You're not going to avoid them. And a whole group of countries, particularly in the Pacific and the Caribbean, they don't have the means through which to adapt for climate change. So these two stock-taking exercises, I'm not very excited about them.
But no influence on Ghana's energy plans.
No. We have mapped our national plan and our national climate strategy to align ourselves to net zero target by 2050. And so we don't have to alter any of our plans to do that.
Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay, sure. A question on the gas strategy. There's a section that says that LNG works best with non-associated gas, but relying on associated gas has greater risk. Since the same strategy says Guyana does not have non-associated gas, does this mean LNG is not an option for monetization?
No, it doesn't mean. If you read other parts of the strategy, you'd see that you'd have to work with investors, including the operators and the owners, and create incentives for this to happen. So you can work with that too. You can monetize associated gas, but there are some developments like the Pluma area where you have more gas than oil, basically. So it doesn't mean, it's not an extreme. So if you read it and read other sections of the document, you will see that notwithstanding this concern raised, you'd have to work through it if you want to monetize the associated gas.
Just a quick follow-up. Can you say how much was paid to create this gas strategy?
No, ask Vikram Barrett about that.
My second question. We said last week that the Guyana government would not be cherry-picking one element of any country's fiscal framework for the oil sector.
Yes.
But your dear friend, cartoonist publisher Glenn Lal, made a full spread of proposed a number of elements that you can incorporate via full page spread. How do you care to respond?
Really? Which one of these full page spreads? You got one every day, some blunt. I stopped reading that. I stopped reading that in a long time. And yes, he's a good friend, Glenn Lal, yes. As a friend, I should really get him examined, you know. You're right about that. I should really get him examined, you know, and let me don't say much more. Yeah, I don't know what he said. I don't pay on technical matters, please. Please don't burden me with responding to Glenn Lal. You've seen his disastrous kind of thing. I went on his own program, his radio program. He asked me a lot of stupid things. He didn't get his fact right. He was reading off a screen. Somebody was sending him the questions on the screen. He had a hard time translating what he was reading on the screen. Glenn Lal can only operate in an environment, a TikTok environment, where you don't have vigorous analyses. He hears something about ring fencing, talking about ring fencing all the time. He has no in-depth understanding. You want me to suffer through that again? You want me to suffer? You don't like me. I don't think you like me, that you want me to suffer through Glenn Lal craziness again. All right. So I have no comment on that. Just to safeguard you, when you go back there, they don't give you a cussing. Right. I have no comment on it, just to safeguard you.
My final question.
You can put that in the headline. Jagdeo did not comment.
Well, he said to tell you that it's on the
Okay.
first page, you know, so you open the
Oh, no, I don't read Gaichur. Yeah. Rarely. I don't know, for comedy value, yes.
My final question, Hess made more than $50 billion in a 30% share in the startup block. Can you say how long will Guyana take to convince on that amount in profit?
Boy, you asking me a question like that? Has sold all of its holdings globally for $53 billion. Not this is 30% in Starboard block alone. You should check that carefully. You must read this thing, man. He sold his entire operation globally. It's Hess International, not Hess Guyana was sold. Hess International. Check the additional assets that they have. Okay? All right, please. Yes, go on check it.
Sir, not surprised you Dr. Jagdeeo.
Yes.
Replenishing covenant interest rates, full oil spill protection, seeking more royalties and taxes in every future project in this type of block will not break the sanctity of the 2016 deal. Can you say why is the Federal government going after these benefits?
You're new, so I'd be benign to you. I've answered those questions many times before. No, I don't want to go back here. I'm getting tired of answering the same questions over and over. So I don't want to say anything because you're new, and I want to encourage the new reporters to do well and everything else. So I've answered those. Please check my earlier comments.
Secondly, with the field referred to audits completed, can government provide costs for drillships, pilots, helicopter lease costs for SPSOs and maintenance?
Those will be looked at in terms of whether they're fair value in the audits. Whether we've achieved fair values. You've seen the audit report now, and the audit report look at costs. And not just costs from a perspective of whether there was any illegality done, but costs in terms of fair value. So when the audit reports come out, we address it through that mechanism, and you've heard me what I said already on audit reports.
Very much. And lastly, a lot of skullduggery has been unearthed in the audit of excellent expenses. If the same skullduggery recurs in the third, fourth, and fifth projects, would that not be enough to justify forming future projects with stiff penalties?
Yes, so there are lots of things. Your term is skullduggery. It could be, but when the audits are completed, then there is a mechanism. So this is precisely why the right to audit is enshrined in all the agreements. Before 2016, the 2016 agreement, every agreement had that, the standard agreements. The right to audit gives you a chance to see whether the expenditures were done illegally or they were inflated. And therefore, you have a mechanism to address it, to correct it. The mechanism is not charging the cost bank for those that we believe are inflated or skullduggery. This is how the world of economics, accounting work here. So there is a mechanism for that, for government to have oversight over this, and it's been in all the contracts. That's the mechanism that we are pursuing. Yes. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted
Right.
to follow up on Shani's question about you're talking about.
Oh, look at it.
Yeah, I was wondering if you see Guyana at any point doing an isolated assessment of the likely chances of catastrophic events happening.
Oh, that's very complex, and it requires a lot of technical people, scientists, and everything else. And these probabilities are calculated. You know, just the fact that we have lost almost all the ice cover in the pole could in a way ultimately lead to switching off of currents. And I don't want to, it's unbelievable. We never thought that would happen so quickly. And so these are real events. But I don't think we are capable here because we don't have a lot of technical people. And you need a global assessment. You need to go into the, like for example, if we look at, is France now really supplying the aid that they say, they claim they're supplying in the fashion that they should supply it to the say GFC or any other for climate fund purposes? We'd have to go and assess that in France, go through all their records. We'd have to do that for every country. We can't do that at Guyana's scale. But we know, because we've been at this for a long time, that it's not being supplied. Yeah. Thank you.